Hi, thanks for joining me here for another episode of Story Time. Today's story is called I Remember, and it's from my collection, Peripheral Visions and Other Stories. I remember. It was nearly 2 o'clock. Surely they would be coming any minute now, the old woman thought. Not that she was excited. It would be ridiculous to be excited about celebrating her birthday. After all, she'd had 87 of them already. What could be different about this one? 88. How did she come to be so old? It was hard to believe that so much time had passed. There were times when she would look in a mirror to smooth her white hair into a more presentable bun and be startled and almost frightened to see the face of an old woman looking back at her. Where was that young woman? It was as though she had disappeared and this old arthritic body had come to take her place. There was no one left who remembered her, no one who shared all the memories of a lifetime. They were all gone. During those long hours of the night when sleep eluded her, she would try to recall the way it had once been. But it seemed the memories had died as well, and she was left, watching the hands of the clock go round, and wondering if she had ever lived or loved at all. But here, and she gave herself a mental shake, there was no point in thinking about what had been. Not today, anyway. It would be nice to see her grandson and his wife and daughter. They made the 3-hour trip to see her every few weeks and always brought her some kind of little gift. Not that she needed anything. Of course, it was Melanie who chose the present. Her granddaughter-in-law always picked what she thought would be useful. New slippers, a flannel nightgown, or for her last birthday, a heavy quilted robe. Melanie didn't know that most of the clothing she had given over the years was still waiting in her closet, the tags not even removed. The old woman was happy wearing the same clothing she had for years, even her chenille cover-up, although it was patchworked with mended spots. She'd had that robe for years, bought it before her husband had died. It had been good enough then, it was good enough now. It would be frivolous to cast it aside for something new. But then that was something the young people didn't understand. Where could they be? She said aloud, crossing the small living room to pull aside the net curtain over the front window. They were usually here by 1. Impatiently, she let the curtain fall back into place and reached over to move the small picture from the end table to the mantelpiece. Young Jennifer was so full of energy after the trip. More energy than the small room could hold. It would be better if the picture was out of the way. She paused for a moment, holding the silver frame tightly in her hand. It was her wedding picture, blurred and yellowed, with the two of them in stiff, unnatural poses. But they had counted themselves lucky to have a picture at all. If the man with a box camera hadn't been traveling through their village, there would have been no photograph at all to mark the occasion, and nothing for her to stare at for 2 long years until she was able to join her husband. As I said, that's from my collection, Peripheral Visions and Other Stories. And it's a story about the connection that two people forge, even though so many years separate them, the old woman and her granddaughter-in-law, about how important it is sometimes to try and make that connection, even if you think you have nothing in common with the other person. In this particular instance, it would be the gift that Melanie was bringing for the birthday. A different kind of a gift than she usually bought the old woman. You know, this was not a practical gift. But for some reason, when she was in the store and she saw that particular item, it called to her. Somehow she just knew it was the right gift. And so she bought it. and would be bringing it to the old woman. And unbeknownst to her, the gift would serve a purpose beyond that for which it was created and intended. It would become a bridge in a way to the old woman's past and the present, open a door for the elderly woman to look at some of the memories that were stored away there, and then be willing to share them with her granddaughter-in-law. It's a tender story, a story of love, a story of linking, a story that tells us all how important it is to make that effort sometimes. If we are the person who still has so many years ahead of us, perhaps we need to reach out to an elderly relative and say, tell me about when you were young. Tell me what it was like, even if we've heard the story 100 times. Let them tell you, because they don't have anybody who lived those memories with them. And if we are on the other side of the age fence, so to speak, sometimes we need to say, you know what? Let me tell you about something that happened when I was young. Because you never know. You never know what connection can be forged from a brief memory. So that is today's story, today's excerpt on story time. I remember you will have to read the story to find out what exactly was the gift that sparked this connection between the two. I hope you enjoyed the brief excerpt, and I look forward to bringing you another story sometime soon. Thanks for joining me here at Storytime.